Hi, I'm Michael Christopher Cole. I am a author, self-publishing my first novel, The Dinner Party, which comes out November 4th, and I am documenting the process of self-publishing to help teach you what I'm learning. If you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe down below to keep up with everything that I'm teaching or sharing. Today we're talking about your book cover. So at this point, you've already written your manuscript, hopefully. Uh, if you haven't, go back to step one. You've already picked the way that you're publishing, whether it's KDP or Ingram Spark or something else. And today we got to talk about book covers. So picking a designer is an important step. And I get it. This is kind of where it can start getting expensive if you're trying to do this as inexpensively as possible. This is a step that is going to be a little tougher for you, but I'm not saying you can't do it less expensive, but I think it's not the best place to cut corners. I think if you're picking a designer, if you have a friend or family member who is really good with graphic design, call on them possibly, and you might be able to save some money there. If you're good at graphic design, maybe you can also do that. But there are options out there that I don't think are very aren't prohibitively expensive necessarily. I used Fiverr. It cost me about $300, I think it was. When you're picking that designer, I think that an important thing to consider is genre. So it we're going to use Fiverr as the example, but because if you have a graphic designer, they're going to help you as best as possible. But if you're hiring somebody, these are things to consider. Look through what they have up for their samples. This is not only helpful so you can see the quality of work that they do, but it's helpful to see what they kind of specialize in, because book covers for self-help books are going to be very different in style than book covers for science fiction or book covers for mysteries or thrillers, romantic comedies, romantasy. Any of those, every genre has its own kind of style, and knowing the style and fitting into that style is important. It might seem like I want to be unique, but you also want a potential reader to see your cover and fairly quickly be able to, within seconds, be able to say, "Oh, that's the kind of book I like." It's one of those deals where you are judging the book by its cover. You have to have something in the book to back that up, but ultimately, your book needs to be your cover needs to be able to immediately say to your potential reader, I am this type of book. You're going to go back and forth. So you're going to say, I think there's a few things that are really helpful to convey right up front before you even get a sample from your designer. And I think that is, you want to tell them the genre, maybe give them a quick synopsis of the book. And this can be, I would say it should probably be less than a page. Most I don't think most designers are going to want to read more than that, but it may be as little as a sentence or two, if you can sum it up that quickly. But in there, elements, include a couple of elements that you think are important to the book that maybe could be useful on a cover. And maybe a couple that are important to the book to avoid when you're describing. So, like, for on my cover of my book, The Dinner Party, um, there was so this is the cover. I'll throw it up on the screen, but there was the original design that I got back. It was pretty much this, but there was one other element on the cover that I thought was kind of a spoiler. So I asked them to remove that other element, and it made sense why my designer thought, hey, I'm going to throw this element on there. I don't want to say it because I don't want to spoil the book. But it ultimately wasn't the right move to have it on the book because it would have been a spoiler. So you may have something like that. You don't want to accidentally throw in a murder weapon that is a big point of contention, or any kind of MacGuffin or any other thing that might be like, oh, this is important for us to decide, to figuring out the plot. So ultimately, keep those things in mind. That's really good information to convey. You may also want to share share some books that you think, hey, I think that my readers will probably have also liked, and then pull up a few comps, essentially. So like, oh, I wrote a book that I think people are gonna like. The Hunger Game People who like the Hunger Games are gonna like my book. So throw those and say like, I'm and that's more specific than just genre, right? Because you know teen sci-fi or teen dystopia or whatever we want to throw that genre in, like this is fairly specific, and so like let's incorporate that style. I'm sure if you're a reader, you've seen this. After the success of Where the Crawdads Sing, there was lots of books that were in the same genre that had that same uh, color palette of like sunset color palette, with nature vibes on the covers, and very quickly you go, oh, I liked Where the Crawdads Sing, I'm gonna like this book. And so like, come prepared to offer those up to your designer. All right, so the next step after you and your designer have like gone back and forth a bit, so you've provided all that information, they've given you some mock-ups of what they think will be good, and you've kind of narrowed it down, decided, it's time to start getting to formatting. So formatting is not something you have to worry too much about, but there's a couple of things that I think are important. Well, unless you're self-designing, but the if you're self-designing, I'm not a graphic designer. I can't really give you much information on that, but I can tell you what you need to provide for your graphic designer. If you're on Ingram Spark or KDP, it's a fairly similar process either way. What it is you're going to upload your manuscript and format it into their system. That will tell you how many pages that your book is going to be. You'll also know that I'm doing a 5x7 or a 9 by whatever the trim size is or whatever. So you'll have that information. But then once you've loaded your manuscript in, you'll know how many pages. And when I say load your manuscript in, you also want to do dedication page and title pages and all those other pieces so that you get an accurate reading on how many pages it's going to be. It's really important to be accurate. You can add a few filler pages in case you think that you're going to need to make some changes. That's fine. Or add, like I did that. I think I added 5 or 6 filler pages just in case things. I forgot to add. And then you take all that information that KDP or Ingram gives you, and you'll go into their cover calculators. They both have them. If you have an ISBN number, that's also really helpful. ISBN, I don't know if people call it an ISBN, ISBN number. That's really helpful because, especially on Ingram Spark, they'll add this into your template. But you can go into the calculators that they have, and I'll link them below. And you can enter in all your stuff. You say, okay, it's 237 pages. It is I picked this trim, this paper thickness, that you need to know all of that, which you'll have already done that if you've already formatted your book, other than the cover, and then it will create a cover template for you based on all of that. And it's really important because, like, if your spine's if you're really, the part that is going to be affected most is your spine width, but that's an important piece because you want it to be legible, especially if you're hoping to get onto bookstore shelves. They all ask if you have a printed spine with the name of the book and author. It's important. And it's fairly simple. You just have to figure that out. The reason I say you want to do the formatted manuscript and not the manuscript that you wrote in Google Docs or Microsoft Word or any other word processor, is they could be wildly different numbers. They could be wildly different numbers of pages. My manuscript for the dinner party was about 330 to 340 pages. The When I uploaded it and formatted it into Ingram Spark, it was 242 pages, I believe. Um, and that's with dedication and all those other things that were not in my original manuscript. So that can be a huge difference. So keep that in mind. And then preparing to make adjustments. So, like I said before, you're gonna potentially want to change things. Um, that could be in the book itself, and then so like I said, add some extra pages if you add it. 5 to 10 extra pages if you think you might be adding a little bit more or changing things. It's not necessarily the best idea to do that, but if you have to, but also like you may want to change the text on the back of the book, or the if you do a dust jacket, you may want to add a bio on the side. So you're going to be able to you want to adjust those things. I did not want to go back and forth with my designer every time I needed a change. I still, for I'm 6 weeks out or more, and I'm still I have a couple changes I want to add to my book, because I'm trying to add quotes from people, from early readers. Um, so I asked, I paid extra. In my case, it cost $45. Most likely, you're able to get a version of your cover from your designer that has the source files for you to edit. That, like I said, may be an extra cost, but I think it's worth it. Like I said, I think I paid all in about 300. I looked it up afterwards. It was $45 for the feature to be able to get that source file, and I've made adjustments to it already. And I didn't change his design. I don't want to do that, but like you're gonna change the text, and he already had the font in there, so it matches the font. I just had to change the actual text in there. So I think that is a really helpful thing that I think is necessary. Now, if your designer is using Photoshop, which I would guess is the most common, complete guess, but you're going to want the PSD files, or other source files. Canva is a little bit different of a setup, because it's a cloud software, and so you may need access, but your designer will have information on this for you as well. So up next, next week we're going to talk about, at this point we've got the book. The book is kind of like, I won't say complete, but it's ready to face the world. So next week we're going to talk about making your big announcement and launching your book.